So here you go. Disclosures, Baptist Hospital. So I'm very lucky to work with Dr. Dabus and Dr. Lima. With him, we shared all the brunt of the call, which is stroke is becoming very, very busy in the States. So large artery occlusion, very quickly natural history, you guys know, but it's good to remind when someone comes, like Demetrius was showing, with a weakness, head and eyes deviation, have an age of 17 or above, that's bad news. They're not going to do well. That's what I tell the patients. Complete MCA syndrome, you have a risk of death or disability of 84%. If you have malignant MCA syndrome with no collaterals, it's 80% mortality. If you have a T occlusion, mortality is 73%, and only 3 of them will do modified Rankin scale less than 2. Vertebral-basilar occlusion, as you know, is not compatible with life, so this patient don't make it. So that's bad news. The good news is we have randomized controlled trial, and you guys know the trials very well. I'm not going to spend any time on that. Just to summarize, we have level 1A evidence, 1,287 patients with large vessel occlusions, and shows overwhelming superiority of endovascular treatment compared to a VTPA. Number needed to treat is 3 to 1 or 4 to 1, which is unbelievable. If you consider that for PCI, number needed to treat, PCI for STEMI, is 23 to 1. So in the literature, I try to look what's 4 to 1, because it's such a remark. 4 to 1 means you need to treat 4 patients for a good outcome. So when I found out that 4 to 1, it's basically antimicrobial therapy for septic shock. So basically do endovascular therapy to someone with a large vessel occlusion is like giving antibiotics to someone who has a septic shock, which of course you guys will do. So it's pretty remarkable. If you look at it, the reason why this is so powerful, I don't know if you can see so powerful is because with the new technology we have, we increase the rate of revascularization, which is a direct correlation. If you look at, if you compare in this slide, the patient with a central perfusion measured by TK2B or 3 in percentage correlates directly with good clinical outcome. So the higher is percentage of patients that revascularize, the higher is the chance that you're going to have a good outcome. So what about, these are the trials, and the classic criticism from the neurologists is, trials, what about real life? Real life, here's some data with this nice registry that we published in JNIS and then in stroke. It's called NASA. NASA is a real life similar to the trials. We're going to have data on 1,000 patients that are going to be presented at ISC. It's called Stratis. So I can tell you what Stratis shows. We're part of Stratis, one of the highest enrolling Stratis. So I can tell you that it's good data, good news. So we're in the era of TK2B recognization of high proportion of patients. And in a randomized controlled trial, the good outcomes between 33 and 71% of patients. So we have still room to improvement. We're not perfect yet. I mean, we're perfect at opening the arteries, but still we have 60, I would say for M1 occlusion, in good sense, we have 50% of patients will achieve good outcome, which is remarkable. It's better than 2%, but only some way to go. So I did analysis. I published in 2 journals, in JNIS, one section, because lots of data, and another one in stroke, which is really, I said, let's look at this patient that we revascularize, but they still do bad. Who are these patients? And so I found out that if you have a proximal occlusion, so if a proximal choroid occlusion, extracranial or vertebral-basilar, then that's bad news. So this patient, even if you revascularize them, not all of them are going to do well. And some of them might not do well at all. If you have a high NIH stroke scale, if you can't open the artery right away, if you need to use rescue therapy, if you use more than 3 passes of the device, so you can regularize the artery. But really, the ultimate main factor, it's time, like Demetrius just showed. So that's a mark in our data. We found on NASA, and analyzing all the data, there's a 9% increase of death or severe disability every 30 minutes delay from symptom onset to revascularization. And that's pretty remarkable. If you analyze disability from that, 30 minutes delay increase the risk of disability of 7%, risk of death increase of almost 12%. And that's, if you look at all the trial, that's seen through in the trial also. So there's an inverse correlation between symptom onset to reperfusion versus good outcome. So the longer you wait, the worse is the outcome. And there's another nice paper just published in JAMA, show the same thing. If you analyze the modified Rankin scale, this is the Grotta bars, so-called, in terms of patient with 0 to 2, based on time onset to reperfusion, you can see the high percentage of patients 0 to 2, all the way up to here, almost 65%, in 180 minutes from symptom onset to revascularization, versus very much less patients with 480 minutes after symptom onset. So time is not good. And why is that? So as you know very well, when you have a stroke, you have a small area of core, and the core of the ischemia enlarges until you revascularize the artery. Once you revascularize the artery, then you kind of arrest core expansion. And this is all well known with lots of data. This great paper for Albert Yeo in stroke in 2012. Final infarct volume is the best discriminator of 90-day good outcome. So there's actually a direct correlation. So if you have 50 cc's or less of final infarct volume, this patient most likely not going to do well. So you need to have a small amount of, which is of course obvious. If you look at Mr. Clean, in fact, the same thing. Then the vascular, final infarct volume, the vascular group was 49 cc's, and the control group was almost double. So you need to have, so how can we slow down or arrest core expansion? So one is speed, as fast as you are, and that's what Demisio showed. Lots of the work is done before the patient comes to us. And I think all of us have these goals, CT to growing puncture, 60 minutes, CT to first organization, 90 minutes. And I think, in comprehensive stroke center, we achieve this, I would say, probably 90% of the time. But it's not easy. So for us, it took about probably a year to achieve these amazing goals of being very fast. So what about TK3 first pass? So TK3 first pass, we'll see it from the data going to be presented on ISC, on Stratis, and which Stratis is the registry using Solitaire, and then the tracker is the registry using Trevo. All of them will show that having a TK3 first pass is correlated with high percentage of patients with good outcomes. So you really need to focus on this TK3 first pass. So there's some, design improvement in devices. Solitaire made some changes. I don't know if you guys have in Spain the Platinum. Do you guys have Platinum Solitaire in Spain? Solitaire Platinum? Yeah, you have it. So basically, Solitaire Platinum is a Solitaire that has platinum marker bands every centimeter. So you can actually see the device expanding, and then you can see when you pull the clot out. You can see the impression of the clot on the device. It's pretty neat, actually. I don't know if you can see it on the slide. Can you see it on the slide? So these are all marker bands, and you can see that the device is fully expanded inside the artery. So I'm going to show quickly a patient, 64-year-old, unresponsive at 6:30 a.m., global aphasic, annulus deviation, NH of 23, so bad news, intubated, carotid occlusion. We went up, opened the carotid, do angioplasty, put a stent, and then go into the MCA, which is occluded. That's the Solitaire Platinum into the MCA. And you can see the impression of, you can see here, the impression of the clot on the device. And then one pass, I typically use a balloon guide with aspiration, continuous aspiration. Recently we achieved high grade of TK3 first pass, and that's the clot you can pull out. Actually, the clot is not stuck on the device. Most of the clot comes in the guide catheter because you do flow reversal, so it continuously aspirating, and lots of the clot comes in the guide. Now the patient, 79-year-old woman, on Coumadin for atrial fibrillation, NH of 20, previous right MCA occlusion, show an M1 occlusion CTA, big mismatch, because she was on Coumadin, no TPA, so that's a mismatch, M1 occlusion. I have a video that, of course, I'm sure it's going to run. It's not going to run. But you can see in the video, I wish you could see the deployment of the device. Device fully expanded. You can see here there's an impression of the clot on the device. So you can actually kind of see as you pull the clot into the clot moves with you once you pull it out. One pass, TK3. That's the post-MRI, which is remarkable. Looks like there's nothing there. Other improvement with this, someone mentioned the A68, which is an interesting, very large bore catheter. You can actually, it's actually probably as big or bigger than the MCA. You can put it into the MCA. I think I found it very useful in very tortuous vessel, 92-year-old woman, left hemiplegia, slurred speech, right hemispheric syndrome, and NH of 21, T occlusion. You can see the massive amount of clot on CT, starting from the T all the way into the MCA. And she has horrendous arch. You can see all these bands on the arch. So it was pretty tough to go up. The Siemens catheter, we're pretty good doing these cases nowadays. So we will put a neuromax here, and then actually the 68 went very nicely all the way into the MCA. You can see the 68 here. Can you see it? Yeah. And all the way into the MCA, so massive aspiration. First pass, we're able to recanalize the T. So now you have the anterior cerebral artery showing, but we have basically turned the T into an M1 occlusion. And then you aspirate the clot in the M1 and have a good recanalization. Very short, this amount of clot to pull out. So actually, this was the clot that clogged the M1. Like you have in these cases, I think, in this T occlusion, you have a clot in the M1, which is, different type of fibrotic material. And then you have a lot of clot, just a column, stagnation of blood that clots up. And those are usually easier clot to pull out. So this was in the guide, and this was was basically stuck to the 68. So we mentioned about EMBO trap. I think the trial has been almost done, no? I wasn't part of it. I think you guys were part of it? No, we didn't. Yeah, but should be almost done, no? I think they're going to present the data at ISC as well. So we'll see what that shows. It's an interesting device. Lazarus, the Medtronic, is basically like a sock. Now, if you think about it, you take a sock and you pull it out. This is how this device looks. You have it here? Yes. Oh, yeah, I know, I've never seen it in live.
Yes. I thought maybe a few minutes.
Great. So exciting technology. But then I think to arrest core expansion. So TK3 first pass, collateral circulation that, like Demetrius alluded. I want to spend like few words on pathophysiology, endothelium, and ischemia. So we all know the leptomeningeal anastomosis. This is amazing vessel you don't see, but when you have an occlusion, you see them beautifully. So we know lots of stuff about LMA. There's lots of variability on LMA. And which part of the variability of stroke as well. So some patients have good collaterals, some patients have very bad collaterals. Patients with poor collaterals have rapid infarct growth, then we know that. And having poor collaterals is predictors of bad outcome despite recanalization. We know this very well from several papers. So even in patients that have good collaterals, so-called robust LMA by Dave Liebeskind, nothing lasts forever. If I have a patient with good collaterals, that doesn't last. If you look at follow-up data, they tend to fade out. So I think it's just a temporary mechanism that the brain uses. And there's documented failure of collateral, even patients with good collateral circulation. That's a classic case published in JCBF in 13, a patient with choroid occlusion. Big mismatch, but looks pretty good. The diffusion looks good. So they decided not to do anything, which is a big mistake in these cases. And at day 4, guess what happened? Collateral fails, patient gets a gigantic stroke. It didn't do very well. So it took 4 days for this guy to fail. But they fail eventually. So we know this is experimental ischemia very well. This is one of the first experiments I did when I was a young man at the BI at NIH. Basically, we're able to measure CBF back in the 90s. So you can measure CBF, and in the rats, when you occlude the middle cerebral artery, you have the same like humans. You have different shades of CBF. So you have a small core, and the rest is all penumbra. So it's exactly like us. Actually, this is the core in this rat. So pretty cool stuff that we knew from a long time ago. And of course, rats they fail collateral circulation as well, like us, and that's been very well documented. In middle cerebral artery occlusion in rats, is basically you close the middle cerebral artery with a filament of nylon or a suture, and then you recanalize after 2 hours, and so you can study all these things, and then they fail after 2 hours of occlusion. And at the same time, in rats, it's well known you have the core. Once you close the artery, if there's no collaterals, you have good big core expansion. And there's a group of rats called ASHR, spontaneous hypertensive rats. This happens very fast. So I don't want to show you too much time, but rats have collateral circulation just like us. There's the ACA, MCA collateral. You can see here, this tiny little vessel. You don't really see, but as soon as you close the MCA, they develop very quickly. And actually, rats are pretty good at developing collaterals, and mice as well. And what we know very well between mice and rats, there's a bigger difference in collaterals. Anyway, it turns out, this is a beautiful experiment done by Marilyn Cipolla in Vermont. Turns out that we know that arteries in the brain are different than arteries from the body. On top of that, collaterals, those little vessels in the ACA-MCA border zone that are usually silent, are different than the rest of the arteries, a different physiology. you can, what she does, she isolates them and studies them in vitro, which is pretty unbelievable because it's a teeny tiny microscopic little vessel, 50 micron vessels. And they respond very different to KCl and diltiazem compared to other vessels. You can see here. There's more fancy thing. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. There's the great work by my friend Chen Kayada at MGH that is using microscopic in vivo imaging to strip oxygenation, blood flow. So very sophisticated stuff, very exciting stuff. So, so LMA, electromeningeal anastomosis or collateral, play a key role in keeping alive the ischemic penumbra. So what we could do would be nice to increase collateral circulation. In this way, you give the brain more time until you open the artery to thrombectomy. So can you do that? So there's endothelin receptor A, BQ610, that's exactly what it does, blocks endothelin and opens up collaterals. There's a very nice study that was published a couple of years ago. You can see, I don't want to spend too much time, this PL artery diameter, you can measure, then you occlude the artery, everything goes down, of course, and then you give this magic compound and everything stays open, while in the control, in the vehicle-treated, saline-treated animals, everything goes down. There's Rho associated protein kinase, which is very exciting. As you know, we know very well those that does vasospasm with fasudil. Fasudil is a ROCK inhibitor. ROCK is a pleiotropic downstream effector or Rho GPases and regulates cell process, including contractility. And there's another paper by Schenk from MGH, same thing, showing massive reduction in infarct volume in animals treated with ROCK inhibitors during ischemia compared to animals treated with saline. So interesting stuff. One thing that really interested is this hemoglobin oxygen carrier. I wrote the trial and hopefully will start pretty soon. Would be a recruiting site very soon. So basically it's a polymer that contains, you can attach hemoglobin and oxygen and carbon monoxide. And when you use and they infuse it in animals, when you use it, there's a massive dilatation of the collateral circulation, leptomeningeal, with this compound compared to other compounds. And on top of that, there's a remarkable reduction on final infarct volume in animals that were treated, these are metastatic artery occlusion rats, treated with this compound, oxygen carrier, compared to animals treated with saline. And that's a paper that we just submitted to JCBF. You put the filament in the metastatic artery, blood flow goes down, stays down, you recanalize, reperfuse, and the brain is damaged in animals treated with saline and is very, very healthy in animals treated with this compound here. So exciting stuff. Talk about cell mechanisms. You know very well glutamate receptors. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Glutamate receptors inhibits the influx of calcium ions into neurons, so acts directly on the core. One of these compounds is called NA1, and NA1 is in clinical trial now. It's given in the ambulance. I think Dimitri is going to be one of the centers participating together with the Canadian guys. We decided not to participate because I really want to do our compound. But it's very exciting. It's going to be a long trial. They plan to enroll like 500 patients, so it's going to take at least a couple of years before they do it. But it's coming. Neuroprotection is coming. So we know the neuroprotective agent failed in the past, but you know these were crazy trials. They were done without revascularization. There's no way that this stuff could work without revascularization. So you have to give it in conjunction with revascularization. So in summary, I'm done. Combining pleiotropic neuroprotection with endovascular intervention is a very promising next step. It's tough to do these things. It's tough to translate things from the animal world into the human's world. But hopefully we can bridge this gap and obtain better outcomes for acute stroke patients. And I'm done. Thank you very much. I have some cases, but you know, for the sake of brevity, yeah.